You have been standing on these walls for 9 years, not every day, not without rest, without rotation, without the ordinary rhythms of a soldier's life. The shifts, the meals, the nights in the barracks below. But 9 years of returning to this same stone, this same height, this same view of the plain below. You know this wall. You know every crack in the stone beneath your hands. Every place where the mortar has weakened from the rain of 9 winters. Every angle where the wind comes through differently in summer than in autumn. You know this wall the way you know your own body, not by thinking about it, but by the long accumulation of days spent in contact with it. And below the wall, you know the plain. The Greek camp has been there as long as the wall has been yours, the fires at night. The tents arranged in their specific order, each contingent in its place. The ships pulled up on the beach, their hulls dark with the years, the paint long since faded by salt and sun. 1,000 ships, they said when they came. You believed it then. You have stopped counting. Below you, the Greeks. Behind you, Troy. You are in between. You have been in between for 9 years. Your bow is in your hand. The morning is just beginning. It is going to be a long day. They are all long days now. This is a story about the view from the walls, not the heroes below. Not the great men whose names will be remembered: Achilles, Hector, Agamemnon, Paris. Those men have their stories, and their stories will be told for thousands of years. This story belongs to the man on the wall, the archer, the one who stands between the city and the plain every day, who watches what happens below, who pulls his bow when the order comes and waits when no order comes, who has been doing this for 9 years and who understands, in the specific way of someone who has watched a thing long enough, what the 9th year means. The Trojan War lasted 10 years. Homer tells us this. The Iliad covers only a few weeks of the final year. The rage of Achilles, the death of Patroclus, the death of Hector, the grief of Priam. But before those weeks there were 9 years, 9 years of siege. 9 years of 2 armies camped on either side of a plain, fighting and resting and fighting again. Neither side able to win, neither side willing to leave. The archer on the wall lived all 9 of those years. He is not famous, he has no epithet, no lineage recorded in the poem. He is one of the many Trojans who defended the city for a decade, who stood on the walls every day and looked out at the Greek camp, and knew that somewhere beyond those ships was a world that was continuing without him, that his own life was being spent here, on this stone, in this siege. His name was Lycos. He was 31 years old. He had been a shepherd before the war came. He was good with a bow before the war. It was a shepherd's skill to protect the flock from wolves with an arrow from a distance. The war had made him better. 9 years of practice makes a man very good at the thing he practices. In this story, you are Lycos. The wall is under your hands. The plain is below you. Your bow is strung, and your quiver is full, and the morning is coming up over the mountains to the east. In this story, you are the archer on the wall. You have been here 9 years. You know everything about this view. You know less and less about what comes next. The walls of Troy are the greatest walls in the world. You have heard this said many times by many people in many different contexts. The Trojan elders say it with pride. The priests say it when they speak of the gods' favor. Even the Greeks, in the accounts that reach you through prisoners and deserters and the occasional shouted exchange across the no-man's land of the plain, seem to acknowledge it with the specific grudging respect of people who have been trying to breach something for 9 years and have not yet succeeded. The walls are thick, 7 meters of dressed stone at the base, tapering as they rise. The stone is limestone from the hills above the city, cut and fitted with the precision of builders who understood that the walls were not a temporary structure, but the permanent condition of the city's existence. Troy has always had walls. The walls are Troy, in the same way that the sea is the boundary of an island, not a feature of the place, but its definition. You stand on top of these walls every day. From up here, the wall is not impressive. From up here, the wall is simply the floor beneath your feet, the stone you stand on, the height from which you look down. What is impressive from up here is the view. The plain stretching south and west to the sea, the Scamander River moving through the plain in its slow curves, the Greek camp at the far end, sprawling along the shore, and between you and the camp, the empty plain where the battles happen, and between battles, nothing happens at all. The plain is empty this morning. Most mornings it is empty. The battles are not every day. 9 years of war is not 9 years of constant fighting. It is 9 years of waiting, punctuated by days of fighting, followed by more waiting. You have spent more time waiting on this wall than you have spent doing anything else in your adult life. You are good at waiting now. This is one of the things 9 years teaches. Your post is on the northeastern section of the wall, above the Scaean Gate. The Scaean Gate is the main gate of Troy, the gate through which the army goes out to fight, and through which it returns. You have watched Hector go through that gate more times than you can count, watched him walk out onto the plain to face whatever the Greeks sent against him that day. Watched him come back, sometimes victorious, sometimes not, always alive. You do not think about the day he might not come back. This is another thing 9 years teaches. You learn not to think about certain things. The Greek camp is a city now. When they arrived 9 years ago, it was a military camp. Tents and ships, and the improvised organization of an army that expected to be here for months, not years. But armies that stay in one place long enough build things. They build storage. They build better shelters. They build the small, permanent structures of a community that has accepted it, is not leaving soon. The Greek camp has all of these things now. From the wall, you can see the general shape of it. The ships still on the beach, their number unchanged. They have not left, and they have not sent for more. The tents that have become something more than tents. Structures with walls and roofs. The permanent impermanence of a camp in its 9th year. The cooking fires that go up every evening in the same places, as reliable as the sunset. You know the Greek camp better than most Trojans do, not from being there, from watching it. 9 years of watching something from a distance gives you a specific kind of knowledge. You know its patterns, its rhythms, when it is active and when it is quiet. You know that the far left section, where the fires burn lowest, is where Achilles camps. You know that the center section with the largest structure is Agamemnon's. You know the sound of the camp in the morning, which is different from the sound of it at midday, and different again from the sound of it at night. The camp is quiet this morning. This means today will probably not be a battle day. On battle days, the camp wakes early. The sound of it changes before dawn. The specific noise of men preparing for fighting, armor being put on, orders being given. The particular urgency that precedes violence. You have learned to read this sound from the wall, the way a shepherd reads weather from the sky. Today the sound is the ordinary sound of a camp waking slowly, without urgency. Today you will wait. You are good at waiting. The men you have killed with your bow are not something you count. Not because you do not remember them, but because counting would be a different relationship with the killing than the one you have. You have killed Greeks. This is your job. You stand on the wall, and when Greeks come within range, you shoot, and sometimes you hit, and sometimes a man falls. You have been doing this for 9 years. The men who fall are not abstractions to you. They are people. You can see them clearly from the wall at the distances you shoot. But they are also not individuals in the way that the men inside the wall are individuals. They are the enemy. The category protects you from the weight of the specifics. You do not think about the city as much as you used to. In the first year, before the wall became routine, you would turn around sometimes and look back at Troy. The rooftops, the temples on the higher ground, the market streets where you could hear, on quiet days, the sound of life continuing. Children, merchants, the ordinary noise of a city that had not yet fully understood what the war was going to be. The city understood eventually. It understood gradually across the years, the way the understanding of a long, difficult thing arrives. Not in a single moment, but in the accumulation of evidence. The first year, it was a siege, which was a word people knew from history, a thing that happened to other cities. By the third year, it was the condition of existence. By the sixth year, it was the only existence most of the younger children had ever known. Your daughter was 2 when the Greeks came. She is 11 now. She has never known Troy without the war. The war is simply the world to her, the way that the walls are simply the edge of the world. She does not know what the plain looked like before the Greek camp was there. She has never been outside the walls. The world to her is the city and above the city, the sky, and at the edge of the city, the walls, and beyond the walls, the enemy. You think about this sometimes. You think about what she will do when the war ends. If the war ends. When you try to explain to her that there was a time before, that you walked on the plain freely, that the beach was a place went in summer, that the world extended past the walls in all directions without soldiers in it. She listens politely in the way that children listen to stories about a world they cannot imagine. She believes you. She cannot picture it. Your wife brings food to the wall at midday. Not every day. On the days when fighting breaks out, she stays inside with the children, away from the walls where stray arrows sometimes find the wrong person. But on the quiet days, the waiting days, she comes. She brings bread and olives and sometimes a piece of cheese. She stands beside you for a while and she looks out at the plain with the same expression you have seen on her face for 9 years. An expression that contains everything she does not say about the war and the walls and the life that has been their life since the Greeks came. Your bow is composite, horn and sinew and wood, laminated together under tension, the specific technology of a weapon designed to store more energy than a simple wooden bow of the same length. You did not make it. A craftsman in the lower city made it, one of the men who had been making bows and arrows for the army since the first year. You have used it for 7 years, since your original bow cracked in the cold of the 3rd winter and was replaced. The bow knows your hands. This is not mysticism. It is the physics of a tool used by the same person for long enough. The grip is worn smooth in exactly the places where your fingers press. The tension of it is calibrated to your draw length, your arm strength, the specific way your body pulls the string. Another archer could use this bow, and it would feel wrong to them in the small, precise ways that a tool feels wrong when it has been shaped by someone else's use. You nock an arrow, not because there is a target, because the motion is familiar, and familiar motions are calming, and the morning is early, and the day is long ahead of you. And the motion of knocking an arrow, and drawing, and releasing, and watching the arc is something to do. That is also something you are very good at. The arrow flies. It travels the distance to the far edge of your range and falls somewhere in the no man's land between the walls and the Greek camp. No target, no one hit. Just the arc of it against the morning sky, the specific satisfying curve of a well-shot arrow finding its full range and then following gravity back down. You knock another. The morning is quiet. The plain is empty. You wait. In the 9th year, waiting feels different from how it felt in the first year. In the first year, waiting was temporary. It was the space between things, the pause before the next event. In the ninth year, waiting has become the thing itself. The fighting is what interrupts the waiting, not the other way around. You have reorganized your understanding of what this life is. It is not a war with intervals of peace. It is a long waiting with intervals of violence. This reorganization happened slowly, and you did not notice it happening. You only notice it now on mornings like this one, when the plain is empty and the camp is quiet and you have nothing to do but stand on the stone and exist. You see Hector most days, not to speak to. He is a prince, and you are an archer, and the distance between those two things in the hierarchy of Troy is a distance that does not close easily in peacetime, and does not close at all in war, when rank and function define every interaction. But you see him. He comes to the walls to check the positions, to speak it with the officers, to look out at the Greek camp with the specific expression that is his alone. The expression of a man who is carrying more than a man should carry, and who has decided that the carrying is simply what his life requires. He is the best man you have ever seen. Not the best fighter, though he may be that too, the best man. The word means something specific, the kind of person who does what is required. Not because they have no other choice, but because they have looked at the choices and understand which one the moment asks for. You have watched Hector for 9 years, and you have never seen him choose the easier thing when the right thing was harder. This morning he comes to the wall near your position. He stands at the parapet and he looks out at the plain. He does not look at you. He looks at the camp, at the specific section where Achilles camps, with an attention that is different from the general surveying attention of a commander checking his position. A personal attention, the attention of a man who is thinking about another specific man. He stands there for a long time. Then he turns and goes back down into the city. You watch him go. You think, that man is going to fight Achilles. You do not know when. You do not know the circumstances. But you know, with the knowledge of 9 years of watching both of them from the walls, that the two of them are moving toward each other the way two heavy things move toward each other when the space between them becomes small enough. You do not think about what happens after that. You look back at the plain. The plain is still empty. There is a man in the Greek camp you have been watching for 9 years. You do not know his name. He camps near the center, in a section of the camp that has the specific organization of a man who maintains order as a matter of habit. He wears no armor during the day, just a simple tunic, moving between the tents with the ease of a man in his own home. He is neither young nor old. You have seen him in battle on the days when the fighting reaches the walls, and he fights well but not brilliantly. He is a good soldier, an ordinary good soldier who has been in this camp for 9 years the same way you have been on this wall for 9 years. You wonder about him sometimes, what his home is like, what he is waiting to go back to. Something is different this year. You felt it in the spring when the Greek fleet returned from wherever it had been wintering and the camp refilled and the plain became active again. Something in the quality of the activity, a tension that was not there in the 8th year, or that was there but less concentrated. Achilles is not fighting. This is the thing everyone in Troy knows and discusses and tries to understand. The greatest fighter in the Greek army has withdrawn from the battle. He is in his camp. He does not come to the plain. The Greeks fight without him, and they fight well but differently, without the specific terror that his presence produced, the particular way that the Trojan lines changed when Achilles appeared on the field. You have felt this change from the wall. On the days when Achilles was fighting, the battles had a different shape. The Trojans fought differently when he was there. Not worse exactly, but more carefully, more aware of where he was on the field, giving ground in his direction more readily than they gave it anywhere else. With Achilles absent, the Trojans fight with something that is not quite confidence but is adjacent to it, a slight easing of a specific fear. But the easing worries you. 9 years has taught you to be suspicious of easings. When something that has been difficult becomes less difficult, it is usually because something has changed that you have not yet understood. Achilles is still in the camp. He is still alive. He has not left. Whatever caused his withdrawal from the fighting is temporary. He will return. You do not know when. You watch his section of the camp every morning. You watch for the signs that would tell you he is preparing to fight again. The rumors that reach the wall from inside the city are always partial and always late. By the time information travels from the council chambers to the streets to the soldiers on the walls, it has been filtered through many hands and many interpretations. You learn to discount most of it and to pay attention to the specific texture of what you can observe directly. The camp below you, the movements on the plain, the quality of the Greek formations when they do come out to fight. These things you can read directly. They tell you more than the rumors. Night watch is different from day watch. In the day, there is the plain to look at, the camp, the activity of the enemy, the specific visual information of a siege in its 9th year. The day watch is active watching, alert watching, the kind of attention that has a purpose and a direction. The night watch is something else. In the dark, the plain disappears. The Greek camp becomes a collection of fires, points of light in the dark, each one marking a place where men are warm and awake or warm and sleeping. The city behind you also goes to fires and lamplight, the rooftops dark against the darker sky. And between you and both sets of lights, the stone of the wall and the drop below it in the empty plain, you stand in the dark and you listen. The sounds of the plain at night are specific and familiar. The scamander moving over its stones, the wind coming off the sea, carrying the salt smell that you have breathed for 9 years until the salt smell is simply the smell of the air. The occasional sound from the Greek camp, a voice, a laugh, the distant movement of men who are not sleeping. And sometimes, in the stillest hours, nothing at all. The nothing is the strangest part. 2 armies on either side of a plain, and sometimes in the deepest part of the night there is no sound from either of them. Only the river and the wind, and the silence feels like the silence of before the war, before the ships came, before any of this. You stand in that silence, you hold your bow. The stars above you are the same stars that were there before the Greeks came. The same stars that will be there after all of this is over, one way or another. The stars do not care about the war. This is both comforting and terrible. Your father died in the 3rd year, not in battle. He was old when the war started, too old to fight, and he spent the 3 years of his remaining life watching the war from the city, rather than from the wall. He died in winter, of the cold and the accumulated weight of years, in the room where he had slept his whole life. You were on the wall when it happened. Someone came to tell you. You finished your watch, and then you went down into the city, and you sat with him for the night, and in the morning you buried him in the ground of Troy. He is still there. He will always be there. Whatever happens to the city, whatever the Greeks do or do not do, your father is in the earth of this place. The horns sound in the afternoon. You hear them from the Greek camp first, the deep resonant sound of bronze horns carrying across the plain, the signal that means the army is forming up. Then, the answering horns from inside Troy, the city responding to the Greek signal, the soldiers moving to their positions. You are already at your position. You are always at your position. The Greek formation comes across the plain in the specific way you have seen it hundreds of times. The heavy infantry in the center, shields overlapping, moving with the collective weight of trained men who have been doing this together for years. The lighter troops on the flanks, faster, more mobile. The chariots on the far edges, the commanders in them, visible above the mass of the infantry. You nock an arrow. The range is not yet right. You know the range exactly, have known it since the first year, have refined it through 9 years of practice. You wait. The formation advances. The Trojan forces on the plain below you hold their position, waiting for the signal from their own commanders. The range closes. You draw. You release. The arrow arcs down into the advancing formation. You do not watch where it lands. You are already knocking the next arrow, drawing, releasing, the rhythm of it. The motion your body knows so completely that thinking about it would only slow it down. Below you, the battle joins. The noise of it comes up to the wall. The crash of shields, the shouting, the specific sounds of fighting that you have heard so many times they have become a kind of weather. A thing the plain produces on certain days the way it produces dust on dry days and mud on wet ones. You keep shooting. The afternoon passes. The battle ends when it ends. It always ends. Tomorrow there will be another day on the wall. On the days when the battle goes badly, when the Greek line pushes forward and the Trojan line gives ground, and the fighting comes closer to the walls than it should. There is a specific fear that you have learned to manage, not the ordinary fear of battle, which is acute and immediate and resolved one way or another quickly. The fear of the walls, the fear of standing on the walls and watching the battle come toward you. The fear of what it would mean for the battle to reach the walls. This fear is different because it is a fear about the city, not about yourself. You have made a kind of peace with what might happen to yourself. The city is another matter. You have seen Helen not often, not close. But the wall above the Scaean gate is where the Trojan elders and nobles sometimes gather to watch the battles on the plain. And sometimes Helen is among them. You have seen her from your position, down the wall, standing among the old men, watching the fighting below. She is beautiful. This is not a remarkable thing to say. Everyone says it. It is said as the explanation for everything, for the war, for the ships, for the 9 years, for all of it. Helen's beauty is the beginning of every account of how this happened, as if beauty of sufficient magnitude is its own force, capable of moving armies and toppling cities. You look at her and you think about this. You think about whether you believe it, whether a face, however beautiful, is truly the reason, or whether the face was the occasion and the reason was something else. The pride of kings, the ambition of Agamemnon, the calculation of gods who needed a war for purposes of their own. You do not know. Nobody on this wall knows. The men around you have opinions. Some of them blame her. Some of them blame Paris. Some of them blame the gods. You have stopped having opinions about blame after 9 years. Blame requires a certainty about causes that 9 years of watching the war has made difficult for you to sustain. What you know is this. Helen is in Troy. The Greeks want her back. The war continues. You are on the wall. These are the facts. The reasons are for other people. Sometimes you think about walking away, not deserting, not leaving the wall during a battle, not abandoning your post, but walking away from the war entirely, taking your wife and your daughter and walking east into the mountains, away from the coast and the Greeks and the siege. There are people who have done this, Trojans who left in the first years, before the walls became the boundary of everything, who went to relatives in other cities and did not return. You think about them sometimes, where they are now, whether they think about Troy, whether they will come back when this is over. In the 10th year, you feel the difference. Not in the fighting is the fighting. It has its rhythms and its patterns. And the 10th year's fighting is not dramatically different from the 9th year's fighting or the 8th year's. The difference is in something underneath the fighting, in the quality of the waiting between the battles. The waiting has changed. 9 years ago, the waiting felt like the pause before a conclusion, like holding your breath before something happened. This year, the waiting feels like the conclusion itself, like the thing you have been pausing for is not coming after all, like the waiting is simply what this is. Then Patroclus dies. The news reaches the wall within hours. Patroclus, in the armor of Achilles, fighting as if he were Achilles, killed by Hector in the middle of the plain. You were on the wall when it happened. You saw the fight from too far away to see the details, but close enough to see the shape of it. Two figures, the fighting, the fall. You knew what it meant. Not immediately, but quickly. Because you have been watching the Greek camp for 9 years, and you know what Achilles' tent looks like from the wall, and you know the difference between a camp that is going about its business and a camp that has received news that has changed everything. That evening, the camp looks different. By the next morning, you can hear it. A sound you have not heard from the Greek camp before. A sound that carries across the plain in the still morning air, low and continuous. The specific sound of a man in grief, so large it has become indistinguishable from rage. Achilles. Achilles is coming back. You stand on the wall in the early morning, and you listen to that sound, and you think about Hector. You think about what Hector will do when Achilles comes back. You think about what Hector will have to do. You think about the gate below you, the Scaean gate, and the plain beyond it, and the Greek camp at the far end of the plain. And you understand, with the specific understanding of a man who has been watching this war for 10 years, that something's is ending. Not the war, not yet, but something, some phase of it, some version of the waiting. You are on the wall at dawn. You are always on the wall at dawn. This is your place. This is where 10 years have put you, on this stone, at this height, looking out at this plain. The stone is cold under your hands in the early morning, the way it is always cold before the sun has been on it. The plain below is gray in the pre-dawn light, the Greek campfires burning low, the world between you and the camp empty and still. Your bow is in your hand. Your quiver is full. The morning is coming up. You think about your daughter. She will be awake by now in the city behind you, starting the day in the way she starts every day, with the specific routines of a child who has grown up in a city under siege and who has made those routines her own. She does not know that today is different from other days. You are not certain yourself that today is different, but something in the morning air, in the quality of the silence from the Greek camp, in the specific tension that has been building since Patroclus died and Achilles came back. Something tells you that the waiting is changing again. You look out at the plain. The plain is vast and gray in the early light. You have been looking at it for 10 years, you know. Every feature of it, every slight rise and fall of the ground, every place where the grass grows differently because the soil is different, every route that the armies take when they cross it, every place where men have fallen and been carried back to their respective sides. You know this plain. You have not walked on it in 10 years. You have only ever seen it from above, from the wall, from this height. This is your view of the war. This is your view of everything. The world from the wall, from this specific height, with this specific angle on the plain and the camp and the sea beyond. The sun comes over the mountains. The stone under your hands begins to warm. Below you, Troy wakes. Before you, the plain. In your hand, the bow. You are where you have always been. You are the archer on the wall. The morning is beginning. Close your eyes. The stone is cold under your hands. The plain is gray in the early light. The bow is in your hand. You have been here 10 years. The wall is yours. A note of history. The Trojan War is one of the foundational stories of Western literature and culture. Whether it occurred as a historical event, and if so, when and in what form, has been debated by scholars for centuries. The ancient Greeks considered it historical fact. Modern archaeology has identified the site of Troy at Hisarlik in northwestern Turkey, where multiple layers of ancient settlement have been excavated, including a destruction layer roughly consistent with the period the ancient Greeks associated with the war. Homer's Iliad, composed perhaps in the 8th century BC but drawing on oral traditions much older, covers only a few weeks of the war's final year. The poem begins with the rage of Achilles and ends with the funeral of Hector. The fall of Troy itself is not described in the Iliad. Other ancient sources, including the lost epic cycle and later works by Virgil and Quintus of Smyrna, fill in the wider story. The walls of Troy described in ancient sources were genuinely remarkable. Archaeological excavations at Hisarlik have uncovered massive stone walls from the Bronze Age period, consistent with the descriptions in ancient texts. The city that stood on this site was a significant settlement controlling access between the Aegean and Black Seas, a position of considerable strategic and commercial importance. The Trojan War, as described in ancient sources, lasted 10 years. The siege of a walled city for 10 years would have required enormous logistical support and represents an extraordinary commitment of resources. Ancient Greek armies depended heavily on raiding and foraging to sustain themselves in the field. The specific social and political dynamics that would have held such an alliance together for a decade are a subject of scholarly interest. Lycos is a fictional character. His name is a common ancient Greek and Trojan name. The experience described in this story: a soldier spending years on the walls of a besieged city, watching the enemy camp, conducting his life within the narrow boundaries of the siege, is consistent with what ancient sources suggest about the experience of ordinary soldiers in the Trojan War. Though the ancient sources focus almost entirely on the famous heroes, rather than on the unnamed men who constituted the bulk of both armies. The bow as a weapon in the Trojan War appears prominently in ancient sources. Trojan archers were considered important defenders of the walls. The most famous archer in the war is Paris, whose bow eventually kills Achilles. The composite bow described in this story, made from horn, sinew, and wood laminated together, was the advanced archery technology of the Bronze Age, capable of significantly greater power than a simple wooden bow. Next, the Trojan slave woman.